how do I continue to grow? How do I continue to learn? And it's less about a new technique, and it's about becoming faster, or it's about becoming more efficient, or it's about becoming sneakier with the way you deliver the techniques. And all of those things, I loved them.
We are live, Mr. Crutchfield. I am super excited to have you on the show, man.
Thank you.
A lot of respect for you and the things that you've done. The thing you've personally done for my family have been huge, and I want to hit on some of that here with what we talk about. But I really wanted to cover a couple of topics. One, lately I've been really thinking about determination and discipline. What a huge factor that is. And you being, which you can introduce yourself, but 7th degree black belt, massive amount of discipline it takes to achieve that level of success in something. And then the other thing is culture, and that's the company. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Kevin Crutchfield. I own Tiger Rock Martial Arts in Prattville, Alabama. And I started doing this 28 years ago. So it is, I don't know, I guess you could call it discipline. You could call a whole number of things. That time kind of sneaks up on you, which I'm sure when people told me that when I was younger, I was like, whatever. That's so long. 28 years doesn't feel like it was that long, but there's nothing else I've done longer. There's nobody outside of family I've known longer. So it's definitely the overwhelming aspect of my life.
Well, what's when you said you've been doing this for 28 years, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. I've been doing Sightmaster for 24, and that's like you said, it does sneak up on you.
Yeah.
But what set you on that path? I wrote down here a couple of questions like, who were you as a kid? Why martial arts? That kind of stuff. But, take us down that path. How did you get on there?
Well, first of all, I was just a complete nerd for martial arts in general. Just as a kid, I bet there's probably 4 straight Halloweens where I'm a ninja or somebody who was going to fight somebody or whatever. And if I wasn't that, I was probably like a professional wrestler walking around with tassels tied to me and my face painted up.
Right.
So in general, I enjoyed combat. I enjoyed the way that looked, but there was an aspect of it that I really enjoyed, the idea that these people were performers. They were the center of attention. They went out there and they controlled a crowd as much as they did these other things. My dad instilled in me just an enjoyment for combat as a whole. I remember him waking me up when we lived in Germany to watch Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. And he said, this fight's not going the way you thought it would go. You got to see this. He also woke me up when there would be professional baseball games where a guy was throwing a no-hitter. He had an appreciation for history in the way that it tied into athletics, especially in baseball, which is just a stat game. But when we got into the martial arts thing, I was in Germany. The first class I ever took, my math teacher did a demo where he broke a bat with his shin. And number one, I like martial arts. And number two, I like math. So this dude immediately shot up my list of cool people. I was like, holy cow, I can't even believe he did that.
Right.
And so he did a club, after school club in Germany, and I took for 2 weeks before we moved back to the States. And then we just didn't sign up for probably 2.5 years. It ended up being a situation, I think, where my dad, who was a truck driver, just recognized that not having dad home, because he wasn't a daily, he was a monthly. We might see him once a month when that came into play.
Right.
He had the ability to come home, once, twice a month, and the discipline within the house kind of dropped a little bit. My mom was a hustler. She worked so hard.
Really?
And so he just recognized that there needed to be some assistance. And when he came in, I think he had quit doing the whole truck driving thing at that time, and it was just going to be something we would do. And so me, him, and my brother, we went and met a couple different owners of academies in Montgomery. And when we met with Chris Jackson, who was relatively new in the area at that point in time, I think it was probably Chick Mathis and Chung's, and both those guys were awesome. Mm-hmm. But Mr. Jackson just connected differently with me, and he was comfortable to my dad, who had already met with a couple of these other people. And he said, you know, there's some great martial arts. He goes, I feel like this guy is going to be best suited for you. And so once we got in there, I mean, I bet I walked in there with a mullet and a skull and crossbones earring. And I was so not that person. Like, I was a straight A
No
kid.
way.
And man, those photos are, they're cringy. But
I've never got to see any of those.
I have some. I could definitely share that with you. But yeah, so like I went in and I mean, there were so many people. It was the biggest thing I'd ever done at that time. It's probably 50 people in a class, because this is around the time like Power Rangers were hot. And so you always had a bunch of people sign up at that time. And there was, like I said, probably 50 people in a white through yellow belt class. Mm-hmm. And it scratched so many of my like personal itches, because I did the baseball thing and I loved going to baseball practice and did not enjoy playing the games. And I don't know why. I wasn't very good. That number one, anything I'm good at, I would enjoy, right? But when we lost, I felt like it was my fault we lost. Because, you know, you sit there, you don't play. Kids are like, dude, you got to stop striking out. Like, I'm trying. Yeah. I'm doing the best I can, I think.
Right.
And so I just took it as I didn't like baseball. And what I think I learned over time was I don't mind losing. That's not true either. I don't like losing, but I don't like to be the reason somebody else loses. If I lose, that's on me. I can learn from that. When I went out there, going to class had the vibe of baseball practice, which I loved. Mm-hmm. But then when we competed, it was me versus you. And I'm a willful individual. And I can adjust. I can adapt. I've sat here watching boxing my whole life, whether it's in the middle of the night or whatever. I have that appreciation for history. I want to be historically known for being good at this thing that I pour myself into. And those things just created a completely different version of me that my parents had ever seen, for sure.
So how old were you when you started?
I started when I was 11, almost 12, the summer before I turned 12 years old. And so that was, and I mean, that's the other aspect of martial arts I enjoyed so much, is I met people I'm still friends with today, people who have kids.
That were in your class?
Yeah.
Or that were mentors?
Yeah, like we all have 11-year-olds now, you know, and like that's crazy. And it wasn't like, you know, we had, I don't know, it's just interesting to kind of keep up with their lives a little bit. Right. We don't all, it's not like we talk a whole lot. I had one when I was in Texas for the tournament who was like, oh my gosh, I'm also in San Antonio. And so we didn't get a chance to meet up. They were there for an anniversary thing. And I was like, I don't want to hog in on your anniversary time, but that's super cool to, you know, get to see everybody.
Right. Man, that's crazy. Very cool. Very cool. So you're in, so you started between 11 and 12 years old.
Yep.
And then, I mean, you immediately clicked. Like it immediately was, this is my thing.
Yeah.
I'm going all the way.
We test every 2 months and I was getting 60 classes. Like I remember one time not showing up, and I didn't show up because I had the flu, and my mom was calling him to tell him that I wasn't going to be there. And I'm in the background yelling like, I'm coming, I'm going to be there. Like I was trying to see if I could get through the window, like whatever. They stopped me. Very willful, for sure.
But you just, I mean, was that, I'm doing it, I'm setting my eyes and I'm doing it? Or is it, like you said, like, okay, God, I know I was made to do this.
I didn't want to miss anything. Like anything you do, any activity you jump into, you grow by leaps and bounds in the beginning. And then you grow by inches. You know, you start to grow in this incremental, only grandma notices every 3 months kind of height, like, oh, you're so big. And so I go from being this person who's learning something new every day to, you know, how do I continue to grow? How do I continue to learn? And it's less about a new technique, and it's about becoming faster, or it's about becoming more efficient, or it's about becoming sneakier with the way you deliver the techniques. And all of those things, I loved them. And you know, my brother was a big martial arts fan, so I'd watch him. He would read stuff on Bruce Lee or he'd watch all these movies. And so you're constantly trying to keep up with this guy who at that time was he was a physical freak of nature. He was, I mean, shredded up and loved that life. And I was like, man, I want to do that. Like if you go back to Germany, there's times where we'd play fight on this bridge over a pond. and we would do all these crazy like martial arts moves, and one of us would hit with this big move and we'd backflip off the bridge and land in the water, and we'd have a crowd. He's the same guy, had me kicking trees with my shins because he saw it on a movie. So many dumb ideas, but like in some way I've been surrounded by it my whole life, and so there's just like none of it is weird to me. I like all of it.
You like every
Absolutely.
bit of it. Well, I mean, is there any time, like, do you ever get to a point where you're like, okay, maybe in 28 years, surely you had a time where you're like, I need to shift gears. Like
Sure.
this is something, I don't know if I want to continue this. What's in it for me long term, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I definitely, like, I retired competitively in 2010, and I had been a very good competitor during my time. So when I retired, it was very difficult to it was difficult to find a competitive outlet because I'm still a competitor.
Right.
Like I'll be having staring contests with people when I'm 85, that kind of thing. Like
right.
it's just who I am.
Yeah.
And so I thought, maybe I could get into like running. And I did a 5K, and I was like, I do not like running. That is not, people talk about a runner's high. I don't know how far I got to run, but I just don't want to find that height. Like, I was like, this is ridiculous. But I did like running to a certain idea. Like I liked the push. I'd sit there and go, can I go from 2 miles to 3 miles to 4 miles to 5 miles? My negative was I want to grow by leaps and bounds. And so I literally was going from like 1 to 6 miles in 2 weeks. And that's probably not how you're supposed to do that. So my legs started hurting.
Shin splints.
Yeah.
Lord knows what.
As I got ready, even before I retired, as I got ready for my 5th degree testing, which was supposed to be my retirement testing, I blew out my left knee. I had an ACL, MCL lateral meniscus tear, Trinity tear. And they did a surgery that six months would get me back out there competing. But they told me, he said, you're going to be in pain for probably 2 years. And he did not lie to me. Like both of those things were accurate. And that's where I started to realize like mentally I wasn't as strong as I wanted to be. And that's kind of hard, number one, to accept. And number two, it's really difficult to grow again, and for lack of a better term. Like you're going, hey, if I want to get there, can I find this passion when part of me is sitting there going, hey, you're never going to be as good as you were. And I'm not. I'm not.
Yep.
I can't train as consistently. I deal with the way training feels the next day. All of that impacts me.
Right.
So I got hurt and just was way out of shape for me anyway. And then I decided that, I want to really focus and try to get there. And so then I started to do CrossFit, which allowed me to kind of be competitive on a daily basis, whether I was good at it or not. At that time, it was something to push.
Yeah.
And
time, reps.
Oh yeah. And I'm competing with like, I don't know, stay-at-home moms and 50-year-old
and
guys.
They're killing you.
Yeah. I'm like, pick it up, guy. Let's go. But it was just something fun to do. And then that created in me a physical confidence that went back into helping me train again. It kind of helped. One thing reignited the other a little bit, and that allowed me to really kind of push. But then they opened up competition again for like another 4 or 5 years. And so I still competed during that time. I just wasn't at the same level, but I enjoyed being able to compete. There was an appreciation that I definitely took for granted when I was, just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. When you said you mentally knew that you weren't strong enough, not that you weren't mentally strong enough, like that side of the whole thing has kept going.
Could be. I don't know. Like when do you quit? From a business perspective, you're a hustler. Like you're always sitting there going, I got another way to do this. I got another way to do this. And
right.
You find ways to grow where you're sitting there going like, I'm not sure you can grow anymore. And you still do that. Well, for me, I don't know if that's where some of that comes into play. But if I sit there and go, hey, if you and I are working out, I'm going to reach this point where my body's going time out. And it's not my body, it's my brain. Like it doesn't matter how strong I am. My mind isn't as strong as I need it to be to maximize what I can do.
How do you condition that? How do you keep on going? How do you go from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9? Like, how do you just...
That is the question too, because I think it starts with victories. And so if I approach that going, hey, if I don't hit this number, it's a failure, then it's so difficult. It's an all or nothing. If I sit there and go, I don't know, let's say for the sake of what I do, let's say I want to have 300 students in my academy. If I don't have 300 by December of next year, then I failed. Instead of going, if I don't have a growth of 5 or 10% every 6 months for the next 3 years, like that would change my life drastically. But it's that same leaps and bounds mentality that held me back in different things that I've done in my life where I chased that initial growth. Those are different. I can't control how that takes place. I can't control growth in my business. I can't control how fast, if I was to work out, how fast I could physically develop. What I have to be willing to do is to work harder than I've worked before. That goes into a mentality. I call it shave a minute, right? So I think it's so easy for people to say, give me a minute. Like it's an after statement. It's something you'll forget about.
Right.
And a minute becomes this completely and totally disrespected measure of time. But if you run an 8-minute mile and I ask you today to run a 7-minute mile, you're going to be exhausted. That 1 minute requires you to focus extra for 7 minutes. It requires you to push harder. It requires you to go through pain. It requires you to push through doubt. So when someone says, give me a minute, or we talk about what it means to truly shave a minute, like that's that mental strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So how does that translate into you're a business owner, and you're doing this. So when did you figure out or did you figure out early on, hey, this is what, not only do I love the competition and I want to be a part of that and I want to keep growing and become a black belt, a master, a grandmaster. When do you go, yeah, I want this to be like my life.
Sure.
Like what I'm going to do is this going to have, I'm going to support my family. Like this is just going to be the whole thing.
Yeah, that was weird for me because I never thought about it. I don't know. I just never thought about it. When I was asked to assist in classes when I turned 14, 13, something like that. Whatever rank it was when I got to black belt, they were like, hey, would you like to assist in class? I was like, yes, I will be there tomorrow. And I loved it. I like to see people. I'm a big fan of that light bulb moment when someone figures it out. I love it. And so I was all about it. And then at 15, I was looking for a job like every other 15-year-old. And I applied at the places I frequented, which was Arby's, Winn-Dixie, and the pool. I was not a lifeguard, but I was of the belief that if they hired me, they would then pay for me to become a lifeguard. I don't know. Yeah. It didn't work out. But before any of them accepted me, the manager at the time, who was moving on to open up her own academy, suggested me as a potential employee to my instructor, who I don't think was looking at me like that at all. And she goes, I think Crutchfield would be killer at this. He would be great. So he asks me, he says, hey, would you like to come work here? I was like, you're going to pay me to do this? Like, oh my gosh, I'm already here as much as I can be, but I will be here even more.
Right.
And I started just working. And at 15, I was homeschooled. We started a homeschool class. That was in 1996, probably 96. We started a homeschool class that I have never ended. Like it is still running today. I taught it this afternoon.
Really?
And it was first of its kind in that space. We started a Cubs class, 4 and 5-year-old class, which is still going. Obviously now, I mean, that's not going to go backwards, but we had 30 kids in that class with a waiting list. Wow. And he said, that's your class. You're the only one that teaches it. Nobody helps you. He said, they need to be trained to listen to one voice. Well, we have some differences in our thought processes on the best way to teach 4 and 5-year-olds, but it was so much fun. I love the chaos of it. Like I like to organize it all and see if we can get it working fast.
Right.
That was great. By 16, I'm probably working 78 hours. I was working 78 hours a week. I had 30 minutes off.
78 hours.
Yeah, 78 a week. I worked.
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah, it really was. And I was given 30-minute lunch breaks. And I remember going, like, I don't even know where I can go. Like, if you've ever been in Montgomery at like 12 o'clock, you're not really going to get anywhere in 30 minutes, not there and back. So I just went over to the Chinese food place next door and got my little thing that I could fill up until as long as you could close the lid, you could have it for $5. That's what I did. And I remember him telling me, he's like, it's a working lunch. You can't be gone the whole 30 minutes. You got to be here, come back. He told me, he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm done. I did all my work. And he threw me a phone book and told me to start with the A's and call them and ask them if they wanted to take Taekwondo. I got through a whole line. I was like, please give me something else to do. I do not want to call these people. Wow. He said, did you get any of them to agree? I said, I got 2 that said they might try it just because I begged them. But I enjoyed teaching. I believe I would be teaching something. If I wasn't doing this, I might be in school, or I might, I would be teaching something. I just like that process. I like helping people accomplish what they either didn't know they could do or couldn't accomplish by themselves.
Yeah. Being a teacher, dude, you've been a huge part. That's why I said in the intro, you've been a huge part of our family, from just the fact of being a big influence in Tanner's life. Mm-hmm. The natural, you own the teaching, the helping people discover another level, another thing, overcoming a hurdle, that type of thing is just, it's invaluable. And it's I even said in the black belt speech, your kids, they have their blank book, mm-hmm. and you got to watch out who writes in the book, and it's been good for you to write in his book. That's a fact. It's been cool.
I use that statement all the time. That's one of my favorite things I've ever heard anybody say is it is important to understand who you let write a passage in the book of your child's life. And I was sitting there going, oh man, I like that.
Yeah, it's good.
I got to steal that one.
I heard it from a friend of mine.
I'm quoting you though. I don't even know that person.
That's right.
I'm just going to quote you every time. Yeah.
All right. So, moving forward.
Yeah.
All right. So now then you've decided this is going to be your thing, your business. When'd you get up here? That's in the thing. How'd you break out and become, okay, now then I am going to be the man?
So at 16, I was training the people who were running the school. That may sound a little self-serving. When somebody would come in, they would be old enough potentially to run the school. And I was not, but I was the most senior employee. So I would go through the process of filling out paperwork, like how we documented things, where things went. And some of that I learned as we went, some of that I knew. And eventually I got to a point where I was just like, hey, I need to be the guy. I know I'm not old enough yet. I was probably 17.
Yeah.
I was like, I know I'm not old enough, but I've been doing this for 3 years. And when you leave, I sign people up. You told me when I leave, the school still grows. Mm-hmm. That's a statement of you. And I had some moments too where coming up after that, he's like, all right, you're the guy. Well, we're going to do it. And then the school went in the tank. We lost, I don't know how many people.
No way.
Well, we had one person who was really upset, and he told the owner, he's like, Crutchfield's going to be the reason this whole place goes down. And, and they just like the former guy, which I understand. That's how it goes. When you're the manager, you're the face. They should like you. He did his job. But this guy was so sure I would fail because I wasn't that guy. He apologized to me later, which I appreciated because some people don't show that in that moment, and that's fine.
True.
But I remember my instructor taking me to lunch at Arby's, my almost employed space. And he sat me down, and I just thought, oh, this is so uncomfortable. He's going to fire me for sure. I knew the numbers. I knew we had dropped numbers. Mm-hmm. And I just kept putting food in my mouth so I didn't have to talk. And he said, I know numbers are down. He said, but I want you to know the people who have left were all people who weren't paying for their memberships. Things weren't, they were behind. We're cleaning out accounts. Nobody has left that was already training. He said, your consistency numbers are the same. I go, okay.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it was such a simple statement, but it was that pat on the back that let me just rip. I took off after that. And so we started growing, and I had to, again, be competitive. So I'm asking people who are running other schools, hey, what are your numbers? How many memberships do you have? How many people do you have testing? And I'm just writing these things down. And I had a sheet that had goals, and I crossed them off as I got them done. I had goals that were 5-year goals, and I would have it on my door to my dressing room. So it was the first thing I saw when I would go teach class. I would get dressed, I'd look at that board and see, okay, where am I at? Where am I at? Where am I at? Take off. And that's something that my instructor had us do literally second month, we all had to write down goals, and we had to understand what it meant to have. He's like, you guys write down a goal. We're all like, black belt. And he's like, that's too far away. That's way too far away. You got to have some other goals. So I did that, and it opened me up to all new relationships for sure. You figure that was 23, 24 years ago. And I talk with some of those people today. I mean, I've talked with some of those people today, and they're invaluable relationships. They were, as a teenager, they were people that would come by and just like, he's like, where's Mr. Jackson? I was like, he's not here, sir. I'm just by myself. He's like, all right, lock up. We're going to go have lunch. I was going, all right, well, I can't tell you no, because you're higher ranked than me. And so he'll just have to deal with that. And, driving around doing stuff, just feeling like, I don't know what we're doing, but it's cool.
Right.
Those people care about me and have cared about me for so long. It is that same thing. And they weren't my instructors as kids. They were in different cities, but they have looked out for me. They still look out for me. So,
right. So they pulled you into the fold.
Absolutely.
All these high ranked school owners pulled you into the fold, and then did they have to vote on you to open up a school? Do you just get to go and say, hey, it's time for me to go for it?
Yeah, what we have is family tree kind of stuff, right? So like my instructor has his tier of guys that he trained with, and they're all under a different instructor, and that guy has his instructor, right? So my upline there is, it goes from me to Grandmaster Jackson, Grandmaster Bailey, and then, Senior Grandmaster Jackson, Senior Grandmaster Bailey, Senior Grandmaster Collars, and each of them have their own people. So I'm in that fourth generation,
right?
And there's a lot of the guys that were up there with him that were just like, oh, that's your guy? Cool. And all of a sudden, it was everybody lifting me up. I had a point in time where my business was almost failing, and Jason Griffin called me for no reason whatsoever. I love this story, and I remind him of it every now and then. I'll send him a video just telling him how thankful I am. I did it the last time I did it. I was so stressed, and I said, I'm sitting here in my car stressing out because I'm worried we have too many students on the floor, and I'm not sure I know how to organize it. And I said, and it's so different than when you called me and I wasn't sure how I was going to pay bills. I said, so thank you for allowing me to experience completely different stress. Because he called me and said, he's like, Kev, like, is there any way I can help you? He didn't even know anything was wrong.
Wow.
I was like, if you want to. He started asking me personal questions, hard questions to answer business-wise, and then brought me to his school in Mississippi, had me stay at his house for a few days, went over my numbers, went over the way I taught class, went over the way I talked to parents, talked on the phone, the way I trained, everything.
Really?
And he just sat there and he said, number one, you're teaching too many classes. He said, you could be a millionaire. You have no time to spend with your family. It's not going to be worth it. And I guess, as a young man, you just sit there going, man, this guy must be loaded. Like, he is killing it. And the first thing he tells you is family's more important. I go, well, like that resonated with me because of the why. Like, you could have said anything. You know what I'm looking at. Like, you have a movie theater in your house. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But that's not what he said. He's like, family mattered more than money. I said, okay. He then told me, you teach amazing classes. Like, you are so good on the mat. And then when I spoke, he said, outside of talking too fast, he said, you're great when you speak to people. You just had somebody who mattered to you as much or more than anybody in your business.
Right.
Affirm that you are as good as you need to be at all of these things. Again, keep growing, sure, but there's definitely that moment, just like I had at Arby's, where someone just passed me on the back in a way that I'd take off. And the school slingshotted from that point in time. We got way better real fast.
From the time that you went and visited this guy?
Yep. It saved my business for sure.
Unbelievable, man.
So, and he didn't have to do that.
That's something that people don't understand, is being able to be around somebody and connect with them and let them help you get to that next level.
Well, that's the reason, like, I'm sure even in the sign business, you guys probably have these conventions people go to, and you share ideas and you look for this new thing.
Yep.
Everybody does that. The difference is this guy pulled me out of rings when I was 15 so we could go do flips in a back room when no one was doing that yet, just because I enjoyed those kinds of things. And so they are there. I like to describe my life as a series of photos. I tell people I see in pictures, so it sounds crazy. I apologize. But each one of these photos captures, so many years of my life or a period of my life. And in that space, I like to think there's levels. you have this front line. These are the people who are your friends, your family, your confidants, whatever. They are the ones who are most present during this period of your life. Mm-hmm. You have that second line, you have that third line. That gentleman, as well as a handful of other people, they're in every photo. They're not always front line, sometimes they're second line, they're third line, but they're in every single photo.
That's awesome.
I refer to those people as like my Mount Rushmore. Like they're in stone. They're not ever going anywhere. They may move around within the photo, but if I don't have them in my life, I'm not going the right direction.
Wow. Dude, that is good.
I'm glad you
There's
like
somebody in every one of your photos.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that where and selfishly, I want to talk about culture.
Yeah.
Because we just had a ceremony the other night, and I already told you this, that everybody that stood up and said anything said family. And it just resonates. Every business wants to have a culture that's like that. How in the world are you doing that? That doesn't happen by accident, and I know it, because culture is as a second tier. I don't know what you want to call it. Once you've been in business for a while, as the owner, you have to. That's your main job, is to develop the culture about how things are going to be done, why we're doing what we're doing. How did you? Like, I'm envious of that. That everybody, people that are loosely related to your, on the outskirts of the thing, talk family.
Yeah. You said it's not on accident, and I don't disagree. I'm not sure it's on purpose either, though. You know what I mean? Like, so you asked me about this culture question like a few days ago, and I sat there and I go, how do you create that? And I think number one, it's persistence. Number two, it's about being very genuine with who you are. And number three, I think it's about, I don't want to say sticking to your guns, but just trusting your gut. Like, we go back to different things, little things. And please, let me make sure I don't forget to say this. Such a massive part of culture and family is my wife. Like, now, especially because she started working in the lobby. Oh man, I don't even know when that would have been, 2018, I don't know, something like that.
Right.
And it changed the whole business. And it wasn't that it created more time, but it did. It relieved stress, it relieved pressure. I was doing both sides of the lobby at that time. And before then, I was taking the kids to school. I was picking them up from school. I was holding them for, hour and a half. Whole time I'm teaching classes, and I had a 10-minute window to talk to everybody in the lobby, and then I'd run back out and teach classes. And that led to a necessity to develop talent, which has really turned into something that we apparently are pretty good at. And so when she came in, I'm thinking, man, this is going to take a ton of work off of me. She is amazing in the lobby. She is like everybody's favorite person. Mm-hmm. And we have this we have a banter about us that we have definitely fine-tuned over time. We used to just keep messing with each other until it started to get a little too real, and then we made people uncomfortable. So we finally learned to quit doing that. But we like to harass each other and joke and play around. I think if I had a skill, this is not the skill people would pick, but I think I'm really good at just allowing people to just unload harassment on me, and I take it all really smooth. And with her in there, it's even worse. Like, I'll mess with her just to get everybody to defend her, and then everybody's attacking me, and everybody has a good time at my expense. It's a good space. Yeah. If that isn't the best description of my family, I don't know what is. That's what it was like growing up. It's everybody harassing everybody. You got to learn to take a joke. You got to learn to be able to, dish it out, take it, all that kind of stuff. Right. But she moved here from Pennsylvania. She was she was displaced from her family. She's set up over here in a whole new space around an entirely different culture of people. Mm-hmm. And it mattered to her that family mattered. And so we start trying to figure out, how do we do that? How do we create a small family? How do we create that environment here? And so one of the things we did, and we only did it for a couple of years, is Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, we would do a potluck dinner in the school. and we would have a bunch of tables because all these people who are military were in the like preferred
Military
community of a military town. Yeah.
Yep.
They didn't have family to eat with, they're just eating at home. So we tried to create that family. And I think we did a great job. So many of those people today still talk about, man, like, you want to take your kids over to Crutchfield, him and Emily are great. Like nobody just says Kevin either. Like that's the other thing. They identify both of us as those people. Right. And so like that's an aspect of family. We had a whole number of young guys who have chose to do this for a living. And when they go off other places, just like, someone may send their kid off for college, I have the people who run those schools call me and they go, these kids have such a deep respect for you. And I think a lot of these business owners, they run it where everybody's an employee. And I think that's smart. That's an intelligent way to go about things. It is not what I do. They're like little brothers, sisters, like they're siblings. I harass them, but I'm there. Like you can't talk about my family. I'll talk about my family, that kind of thing. Like they know I got their back. I've got their best interest in mind. And I'm always looking to help someone do the same thing I did, which was pursue this life. If it's what they want, it's not the easiest job in the world, but that's how that's why I mean, the culture is not purposeful. If I didn't love this, I would be forcing that culture. If it wasn't part of how I feel, if it didn't have that impact on me when I was 11, like why would I wouldn't feel I'd be chasing something that somebody at a convention would have told me about, that kind of thing. Right.
This is a way to get rich. This is a way to whatever. And
you'll still fight that. You'll still see somebody who goes, oh man, like I was looking at, again, Jason Griffin, who he's just got a mind for things, and he is always on top of stuff. And he was showing, he's doing a marketing thing for back to school where they do a Ninja Warrior night. And the rule is you have to bring somebody that's never been there. If you bring somebody who's never been there, you can do it for free. And so his students all bring a friend. He has like cargo nets, and he has these monkey rings and steps and crash pads and all this. And I mean, his facility is gigantic. He owns like a 2-story facility. He has a rock climbing gym, and it's really fantastic. Yeah. He has all that. And he showed the video from a year ago. He had 275 people show up at his school for this event. I wouldn't even know what to do. I would just hide in my office. I have to imagine. So I sit there and people are like, are you going to do that? I was like, do you know the level of organization that this man has already thought through just to be able to run this event? Because he didn't freak out. He recorded it.
275.
It was him. It was his competitive thing. Like I sit there and talk about chasing that competitive edge, and he's sitting there going, how many people can't do this? He goes, I'm going to kill it. Like I'm going to absolutely wreck this thing, and it's going to be great, to the point where he did it again, So it would be easy to look at that and go, man, we need to do that. I have no idea how to go about that. So I go to what I know. I do the things that I know. And maybe I go, okay, could I do that in a year from now? Can I plan for it and try to do it correctly, appropriately?
Yep. Throw those goals up
put them on the door. That's right.
And keep going after it. What's next? Where are you going? Where are you going from here? From Kevin today, where you like?
Yeah, I talked to somebody about, it's like, what if I wanted to open up another school? That was a conversation I had in San Antonio. And he said, you want me to be honest? I said, absolutely. He said, you are an A+ instructor. And he said, but I think you may have a B drive. I go, oh, that's a kick drive to the gut. He's not wrong, right?
Well, I don't understand the drive part.
Why am I not? If people look at me and go, hey, when you teach class, you're as good as any instructor we've seen. And I'm not saying they say that, but there's people who've said I'm a good instructor, right?
Absolutely.
Why don't you have that guy's numbers? Like he may also have this fantastic culture, but he's able to make this kind of money. Well, what he is incredibly organized. I'm not organized at all. I'm a hot mess. I am a walking pile of papers in the corner where it's where I put it and I know where it is, that kind of thing.
Right.
And he's like, if you buckled down and got organized, you could easily do this. But here's your benchmarks and laid those goals out. You need to have this many students. If you have this many students and you can work that successfully, then get to this many. He said, if you can get to that number, and you're operating that, you're managing your student base, you're communicating to people correctly, you're getting information out on time. That is the normal number for like 2 schools. If you can get to a 2-school number and you're running that, then you're capable. And at that point in time, set your money aside. And when you set it aside till you get to this number, then you go, do I really want to spend that? Because you now have to find somebody worth investing that much money in and taking that risk and being willing to have it be flushed down the toilet if that's where it goes.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
So you're not talking about drive as in just drive, wheel, that kind of drive, competitive drive. He's talking about is that what you really want to do?
Yeah.
You have to say, hey,
why is your school not that big right now? You're good enough. Why is it not there? Well, it's not there because, and whether you want to hear the answer or not, it's not there because you're not working it enough. And either A, that means you're lazy, or B, your drive isn't as big as your dreams. And that is hard to hear, but if you don't take an opportunity to allow someone to kind of audit you from the outside, right? So you and I are both in that same position where you're the top guy, but you've got so many employees. My employees are teenagers, like they're kids. And not just that, they're kids that grew up in that business. It's very difficult for me to ask someone who I met at 8 years old to give me an honest assessment now that they're 16 years old,
Right.
But it's so easy to become the king of your castle.
Yeah.
As opposed to a little more diplomatic, something where people can go, hey, I think you're slipping here. Like, okay, let me see what I can do. And so, again, those same people that were telling me these hard truths are the same people that were pouring into me when I was 15 and 16. Like, I understand that their words come because they know I want to hear them. They know what I'm capable of, and they are nothing but encouraging ever. I didn't take it as negative, and I think he thought I did. I was like, no, not at all. Like, that's... I talk about getting that pat on the back. It's kind of like that, a little more lower than that, maybe a kick in the pants kind of thing. But, I need to hear that. It's not just me now. I have myself, my wife, my kids. Mm-hmm. We've been doing this since, we've been in Prattville for 17 years, just in that spot. Like, we were here before Target or Bass Pro or any of that. Like, we were here when Prattville was Winn-Dixie and a stop sign and a Hardee's. Like, that was it. And so
that's crazy.
The idea is, how do we grow? How do we continue to grow? And at some point in time, I can't just sit there and go, well, we're not growing because of COVID, or we're not growing because of the economy. We're not growing because of me. Like, I got to work harder. And so I need someone sometimes to say that, because you might think it, but unless someone else says it, you might just go, I'll just put that on the back burner. I imagine if someone came up to me and said, hey man, like, you're drastically out of shape. Like, I would feel the need to diet tomorrow. Like, I'd go, okay. Like, I look at it differently now, Yeah. So it's just part of that.
Tay gave me that one the other day. I was like, hey, I think I'm getting up there close to about 200. I could probably lose about 20 pounds, get back to fighting weight. And she's like, no, but you could lose 10.
Like, you could have just said I was good. I had a guy one time pull my shirt down over my stomach. He goes, what's going on there? That's all he said. I went home and immediately, that's when I started training. That's when I did CrossFit right there. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Stomach peeked over my belly. That's not good.
Funny. Yeah. So you're, that's pretty like open, honest assessment of what's going down.
I think that goes
directly
into culture too.
Wow.
That's the genuine part. Like, I'm so incredibly flawed. Like, I have no problem telling someone I'm wrong. I'm wrong more than I'm probably right. The difference is I'm okay with being wrong. Like, that's how I'll get where I want to go.
That's probably it, Kevin. That's probably the key right there to your culture, because that's when you have a family, a legit family, you know that about everybody there. Mm-hmm. You live with them. Like, you know they're legit flawed, and but you also know they got your back. Your best interest at heart. I
think, and we have so many parents who I still think, like, we have a ton of people in our school who treat Emily and I like we're family, which is, it's crazy. It makes me, like, I have to force myself to try to be comfortable with it, because I don't want anybody to feel like they have to treat us any differently. And we went, Emily and I, 2 weeks ago, we went on like 3 day dates, and I don't think we paid for a meal. And we only sat down with a couple one time, and they paid for us one time. And I was like, we need to quit accepting these things. If people are going to, but the other 2 spots, we had people pay for our food, and we didn't even know who it was one of the time. And the other time, that lady showed up, said, hey, left. And then we found out she'd paid. And I'm like, We had that happen. Going to ice cream, person in front of us paid for them and said, just tell them your Tiger Rock family says thank you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I ordered way too much ice cream.
Yeah, man, it's cool.
It's cool. A good thing. I'm not mad at it. It's just, I don't know, if you ever have people compliment you a lot, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm appreciative, but it's humbling for sure, because I don't necessarily ever feel like I deserve the kind of praise people lay out on us at all. But I'm grateful that they believe we do.
It's part of the humility in that is off the chain too, man. It's good. Very good. That has to be the genuineness. Like I want to write that down, put that somewhere. About genuine, because
I feel like you're that kind of guy.
But that seems like, that seems so cliche. Well, I'm just being me. I'm just being genuine. Yeah, but
we live in a world right now where people take that, and I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of genuine thoughts that I have that I do not share. There's so many times where I just bite my tongue and I go, no, I'm just going to keep that one to myself. Yeah. So I think we have a world where people feel like they're told they can't be themselves, and they rebel, and I'm going to be myself turned all the way up to 11.
Yeah. Which is bad too.
And yeah. I mean, there's definitely value in having some restraint in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also know this. There's a confidence in going, I would love to have 500 students. That would be amazing. I don't know what I would do with that, but I don't need to have that many. I don't need...
Not now or not ever?
Not ever. I mean, in Prattville alone, we've definitely taught over 2,000 people probably in this town.
Yeah.
And, I would love to have a school, because I feel like without sounding full of myself, I feel like I'm good enough to have that many people. But I really just want to have good people, like that matters to me so much more than the rest. Like, we have a scholarship program that we don't really talk about, where we have people that they're always students who situations changed, and I'm in a position to be able to help that person. I'm going to do it. Those people I'm probably the most awkward with, because I don't know, they're very thankful, but at the same time, I'm just kind of like, no, that's cool. Like, here you go. Just go do what you're doing. Like, don't treat it any different.
Right.
But when you go through all that, like you're trying to find the best way to do your business. I would much rather have the right people in the building than all the people in the building. So when someone comes in, it's easy for me to be genuine, because I don't need them. I want them, but I don't need them. I can sit there and go, this isn't a good fit if it isn't. Mm-hmm. Or if I'm myself and they go, that guy is crazy, and they don't sign up, that's okay, because I did not mislead you. I am who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put that.
Yeah. Dude, genuine. Well, I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, thank you. I've already said more ways than one,
Huge influence. You.
Huge influence on my kids. Huge influence on me through that, the whole thing, the way you handle your business, your attention to doing what's right in there, developing a culture, a family culture. Just that one thing, going to that award ceremony and sitting there and then resonating into that. Everybody here keeps saying family, family, family. Man, he's doing something right. He's doing something really right.
I appreciate that.
Hey, before we get out of here, what's the Facebook? How do people reach you online if they're watching this thing? And where do they go to sign up? And
Well, we are on Cobbs Ford Road. We're across from Larry Puckett Chevrolet, and I mean, we've been there since they broke ground on that strip.
Right.
We have a Facebook page. Anybody can message us on there. If you call the number, I'm able to receive calls at all times. Not that I don't always have my phone on, but I will call people back at all times.
What's the Facebook page?
It's just Crutchfield's Tiger Rock Martial Arts.
Crutchfield's Tiger Rock Martial Arts.
It's way too many words for a Facebook
page. It is way too
page,
many words, but
I need to get a better person on that.
Unique, man. If you can't remember Crutchfield, something's wrong with you.
You have to be a spelling bee champion to look us up on Facebook. Then you'll be good to go.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else?
No, I mean, that's it. I'm just happy that this was cool. Like Lord knows I like to talk. So anybody invites me just to talk, I'm on board.
It's good, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir.